Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our Common Sense Parenting live video. My name is Gabby. I'm your monthly host. We are joined here with Bridget Barnes, who is our Common Sense Parenting expert, and we go live every single month on social media talking about a different parenting concern, and we're always taking submissions. So if there's something you want Bridget and I to discuss, let us know. Otherwise, like this video and keep watching. Bridget, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's sunny here, so I always love those days. Try to sink that in while you can get it.
Yes, for sure. Well, today's topic, we are talking about something that unfortunately, as Bridget and I were saying before this live, is something that happens all the time, year round, and sometimes too often. And those are traumatic events, whether it be a school shooting, losing a family member, a grandparent, a friend. There are numerous traumatic events that can happen to our children as they grow up, and figuring out how to navigate that as a parent can sometimes be a little bit tricky. So Bridget and I are kind of talking about a little bit more of a harder topic with that today, but we hope that it will help you. And as we go through our discussion, if you have any questions for Bridget as we're talking, leave it in the comments below. If you're watching this video live later on in the future, if you find it on YouTube and you have additional questions, let us know and we can get you the resources that you need. So I already list a couple in the intro, Bridget, but what are some other examples of some traumatic events that children may face?
Well, before I kind of go through that list, I just want to mention what Dr. Connie Snows shared on our parenting.org site. She's a psychologist with our behavioral health center. And she said that, situations that might be traumatic for one person might not be traumatic for another person. So their response is kind of really key to whether that is traumatic for them. I mean, you are in a car accident, I'm in a car accident, you might have one kind of experience and I might have another kind. And so lots of times parents might project on their children that, oh, you've had the traumatic experience, so you should be traumatized, where that might not be the case. So parents will want to make sure they pay close attention to what the child is doing during and after that trauma has occurred. But over the years, parents have shared with me and my staff through our parenting classes, different traumatic events that their kids have faced, whether it be like school shootings, right? Some of those are coming fast and furious, one right after the other. And it was really the repeated seeing that again and again that was more traumatizing than maybe just one shooting. But now it's beginning to be everywhere I look, there is a shooting. And so children can feel more unsafe. Or mob behavior, when children see adults who are doing behavior that is scary to them in public places. Maybe even just disasters, such as, the weather that we've been having, or the shooting, attempted assassination that we saw on television. So having too much of that directed toward children can be a trauma situation. But again, let me caution you that not all trauma is the same for everybody.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Or traumatic event, should I say.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sure. What immediate steps should parents take following a crisis to support their child?
That's a very good question, Gabby. So I'm sure our listeners would want to know, what should I do when my child has experienced this crisis? And I do know that they're having some behaviors and some response to the situation. First things first, listen to the child. It's very important to, just take the time to listen, because a lot of time when we're talking to each other, we're not always listening to what the other person is saying. We're thinking about what we're going to say. And when our child is in crisis, parents are really frantic to think about, what can I do? And sometimes they're not listening. So it's important that you slow down and that you listen and show that child that you are sincerely concerned and you're listening, you're tuned in. And then make sure your child feels that they're safe, that their needs are going to be met, that we are going to take steps, that, I'm not just hearing you and thanks for sharing, but, you're safe here. And, allow a child to be sad. Don't say, okay, buck up. You don't have to cry. No, cry all you like if you feel like crying. And sometimes children don't cry, and parents are wondering, why isn't she crying, or why isn't he, responding? Maybe they want to draw their feelings out. Maybe they're too young to share with you how they're feeling. I would definitely say limit your child's exposure to something that might be causing them trauma, whether it be news reports or whatever. Turn it off, shut it down, and give them some space. Don't go to those places that cause them trauma if they were bullied or whatever in some space. I can remember being bullied in my younger years in front of the school, and just avoiding that spot every single time. And my sister was like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm going to the other side of the street." And so I think that can really stick with kids. And so make them feel okay about that, right? Provide that structure and routine. I think when things go wrong, I mean, Gabby, you would agree, when things are not going right in our own lives, having structure, knowing, okay, I'm going to get up in the morning, make my bed, do an exercise, whatever it is that gives me some stability. So kids really need that something is the same here, something is stable in my life. Last but not least, get some professional help. When needed, you should get therapeutic help, legal help, other interventionists involved. We don't have all the answers as parents. Who does? And so it's okay to get help. And sometimes we don't always feel it's okay for us to get help, that we shouldn't, we should be able to take care of this. But no. We should speak up. We should speak out. We should get help.
Yes, definitely. And we'll talk more in this chat on how to get help as this progresses. So if you're wondering about that, we're going to get there too. What about talking to your child about these traumatic events? I know a lot of parents are probably concerned what's appropriate to say by their age. Are they too little to know the details, or what should we be telling them about, any of it?
Tell them whatever they're asking about. Be open and be honest. Kids can tell when you're faking. Little kids can say, "Oh yeah," they can pick up on, "You're lying to me right now." But there's a way to say that in words that they understand. That's the kind of wording you should use according to appropriate for their age. Use language that's appropriate for them, but be honest. And if the puppy died, he did die, and what does that mean? And maybe you put it in the form of a storybook or a movie or drawings. For little children, younger kids who need that and are going through that trauma. For older kids, maybe it's going to be, they love to text. So, when someone texts me all these things, I'm like, all right, emojis, I'm feeling this way, or mangas, and he was into that. And so I would say that, however, the child needs to hear that. We need to talk in that language for them and hear them in that language, and just be open and try to regulate our own emotions, that we don't get, maybe we need to be talking to someone about our feelings about what our kid is going through. So get help for yourself as well.
Yeah. So what about coping skills? How can children cope with traumatic events? Do you have advice for strategies we can teach them to implement?
Yeah. Like I mentioned before, therapy is no joke when it comes to true trauma. I believe that more and more these days we're feeling okay. And I think that's because a lot of sports, stars have spoken up about their emotional and therapeutic care. And I think people are feeling less like it's a stigma that you have to bear. So I would say definitely getting therapy when needed. Even our Boys Town hotline has a way for people to talk by phone, by text, however kids might need to have that help. We help thousands of people year round with that service. Self-care practices. I think this is a new wording for us, is it not, in the 20th century?
Yes.
It was seen as being selfish to have self-care, but no, it's really a necessary thing. You can't care for someone else if you can't care for yourself. And teaching children, you actually have to take the time to teach children how to manage their stress. Just don't expect that they know how to do that.
Right.
And so when they get sleep, when they have good nutrition, when they exercise, when they're taking their vitamins, when they are using those, 7 pillars of, reducing stress, whether it be emotional or spiritual things, recreational or social things that they're involved in, all those things help kids and making that a part of their life. Not just study, get good grades, we've seen in other cultures when that is so stressed that children are stressed out and they need to have self-care. You have to include that in their daily life like you would include anything else. Mindfulness is another thing I would really suggest parents begin to consider. Meditation is it's no problem with the kind of living in that present moment, taking those deep breaths. I was doing that before this interview. Just, very deep breath and then slowly blowing everything out, and just really taking a moment to be in the moment. Joy. We don't talk about that a lot, right? Learning
Not when we think of traumatic events, I don't.
But you can offset traumatic events. I mean, having those moments. I remember when I lost a loved one very close to me, and learning to have tiny little moments of joy and being okay with that, right? And just, okay, I'm going to eat this thing I really love. Oh, I'm joyful. Okay, now maybe the rest of the time I'm not so joyful because I'm still in the trauma, but you have to build it up little by little. You're not, in trauma and then all of a sudden you're okay.
Right.
It takes these little bitty grains of joy back in your life and being able to be in the moment of that joyous time, whether it be a hug or whether it be a meal with someone, having some healthy boundaries, being able to say no or that I can't, or having some rules to protect yourself and to secure your personal well-being. Mm-hmm. Sometimes our kids don't know that they can say no.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Especially, when it's a traumatic event surrounding, the death of the loved one, those kids might feel, okay, I need to make mom feel better about this, or give a hug to every single person at the funeral or wake. And it can be very, very overwhelming in those situations, especially. So,
yes, that's an excellent point. Definitely protecting, letting them know it's okay to protect and they have some rules like, I don't want to hug everybody. Is it okay if I shake hands, or if I say okay? And maybe telling the guests, Johnny is not wanting to hug, maybe grandma will still want to hug him, but it will cut down on something like that. Just explore some emotional outlets that your kids have. It might be something that you hadn't thought of that, that they would like to do. I know that my son was getting into these puzzles that you draw. I don't know what they're, but it's kind of a coloring thing, but not. And it would just fill up his mind and fill up his time. And, that was a great outlet. So I think that, if you have a pet, no pet?
Oh, yeah. I have a little wiener dog.
Wiener dog. Okay. So, playing with the pet, sometimes animals can be very nurturing through trauma. And if you don't have one, sometimes they have places where you can go pet and take care of an animal and you don't have to have them at home. So, I'm really a weirdo because my thing is, I'll tell all of you guys, my thing is cleaning and organizing.
That's your coping is, but having a clean space makes everyone feel better, I think.
Yeah. And I look at him like, look at that refrigerator. I'm so happy.
And then it's not one more thing when you're already, feeling low or going through a traumatic experience. You don't have to worry about having a messy home on top. Yeah.
Right. And so what I'm saying is different for everybody. Yeah. How everyone expresses that and gets through that and explores their creativeness through that is going to be different. And the same thing for your kiddos. So what you might think would be a great way to express their feelings or to deal with stress might be totally different for them.
Yeah, definitely.
But they have a lot of little charts up on the internet that you can, download on, how to deal coping skills.
Oh, yeah. We've got on the Boys Town National Hotline, we've got a whole list of 99 coping skills. So there's bound to be one or two that your child will like on that list. So check that out. I think their most popular resource from what I've heard over the years. So it's great.
Wow. Good.
So, what role, Bridget, does parental behavior play in a child's reaction to crisis?
Well, a big role, obviously. If I were to, we could do a little exercise here, you and I. Okay, let's try this right now. Are you ready?
Yes.
So, show me your hands, number one. Okay, we're going to clap together on the count of three. Ready? Yeah. 1, 2, 3. Okay.
I was a little off, but
you were off because why? You were looking at me. I clapped on 2 and you clapped on 2. Yeah. So parents are, modeling to their children, and I can teach you all the list and all the things, and we can download all the stuff. But if you are not doing it, guess what?
Sure.
Your kids won't do it. They're following what you're doing. You're modeling for them how to behave in a crisis. Mm-hmm. So taking that deep breath, self-care, mindfulness, all of those things you have to do for yourself. First things first. Yeah. So, that clapping exercise was just to show you, we are influenced by other people. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's hard too with traumatic events, especially, sometimes as parents, we think that, if we're crying in our bedroom, or that our kids don't see us or hear us. And, a lot of time that might be the case. And then, how do we deal with our kids being worried? Oh, mom or dad is really upset and they're sad over, losing grandpa, losing grandma, for one example. So I really want to emphasize kind of what Bridget said of, it's important to take care of yourself and get the help you need if that's the case. Yeah. All right. Well, we just have a few more questions for Bridget. If you're watching live and you have a question, go ahead and leave it in the comment section so we can answer it in time.
And I say, if you have a question in general about this, we have Ask the Experts up on our parenting.org site. Lots of the docs up there, myself included, a lot of different people who can answer specific questions. So put your questions in there, and I know we'll get those to those experts.
Definitely. Yes, I will go ahead and link that here in the comments too. It's our Ask a Question page. Honestly, I would just bookmark this, and then you can always have it for when you need it. So I just posted that below if you're on Facebook, and I'll add it to Instagram here too. Okay, wonderful. So the next question here is, what are some signs that a child may need professional help to cope with a crisis?
Well, if a child becomes extremely defiant, who hadn't been defiant, or they have a sudden shift in something that they were interested in, or a habit that now they're not doing that at all. Maybe the child is isolating themselves, or they're excessively worried or sad. They might even, for younger children, might regress. Baby talk or bedwetting or clinginess. So they might begin, older kids or even younger kids might begin to talk about self-harm. But definitely keeping an eye on eating, sleeping, temperament, irritability, change in behavior that is chronic and consistent and out of their, norm. Make note of that and have a conversation, learn to listen and hear the child. There's a lot of reasons that might be happening, but if it's following a traumatic event like death or something that's happened, and what you might think is, that's not traumatic. Come on, let's just get over that. It might be very traumatic to the child. So just kind of tuning into that.
Yeah. How do we balance honesty and reassurance when discussing difficult topics with our children?
I think, the balance always is just being honest and knowing the age appropriateness of the child, what they can take in, and not giving them more than what they've asked for. Don't get on a rant or with whatever. Just if the child asks you this and you answer that, and, do you have any other questions you want to talk about? No, not really. Okay. I would definitely give them space. I always have this kind of an open door approach versus the interrogation approach. So letting them know they can always come back around. So it's not a one-time conversation, And I text my kids, like, how are you feeling? and a smiley face or sad face or whatever might come back to me. And then, I might check in on that kind of thing. So I think there's lots of ways to check in with kids and to have that open, honest, balanced approach with children. And if you've been doing it before, right? If you've been communicating before the trauma or the traumatic event happened, then it's going to be easier for you. If so I would suggest don't wait till trauma happens and start having ongoing conversations with your kiddos. Right?
Yes, for sure. Okay, the last question here is kind of relates to it, but how can parents foster a supportive environment at home to aid in their child's recovery from crisis?
Yeah, we have talked about a lot of them, like having open and honest conversations, being that role model for coping with different things, allowing your kids to see you cry. And to say that you're sad and that it's okay if they're sad too. And it's okay if they're not sad. Spending time, just creating moments. Remember those moments of joy, not just everything has to be downtrodden. So even though you might not be at your best and at the top of your game as a parent because you're going through a trauma situation, but to have moments of joy and be okay with that. Have a routine for your family, for yourself, so that there are some things that you can, reassure your child that they are safe, their well-being is considered, and then, like I said before, looking out for acute reactions to traumatic situations when kids respond in ways that are not like their personality or like behaviors that they had before. All of those things can help us, and there's so much now on the internet that can give us those lists. I would put them someplace, and when you see that, you're like, hey, because sometimes you might see it and you don't recognize it. You think, oh, he's 16. Okay, but I think that you have to really stay tuned, especially after something that might be considered traumatic occurs.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm just linking to the Boys Town National Hotline page under our video too, because, if you want a new follow-up after you watch this video, the Boys Town National Hotline has so much. They actually just recently launched a brand new version of their app, My Life, My Voice. So kind of what Bridget said when she would text her child and have them do an emoji reaction, the My Life, My Voice mood journal works similarly, where a child can log their mood with those emoticons in the app. And if their moods start to trend downward, they can get a push reminder to, hey, maybe it's time to reach out to the hotline and see how we can help. So
I love that. I love that emoji. I was like, where was this when my kids were growing up? I tell all my parents, definitely
use the emojis.
Yeah, download that. Have your kids download that, because sometimes they won't talk to us. Sometimes we're there and we're ready and the door is open and we're honest and, we've done other things, and they're more likely to talk to this person that they don't really know or have ever seen, and be very honest with that. And if that's the case, I'm totally fine with that. And it's really cool. So if you guys don't even need it right now, your kids are young, or you're not in a traumatic situation, still go up and check it out. I think it's worth the time.
Agreed. Well, Bridget, thank you so much for all your expertise on this topic. It's timely year-round, and it's great to have you on.
Oh, I love to talk to parents. Come on down to our classes. We have classes all over the country, but definitely here in Nebraska. If you guys want to come to our online classes, we have those available to parents. And then you can talk to other parents who might be feeling the same as you, and can also lead you to some great support.
Yes, wonderful. Our next live will be all about everything back to school, so keep your eye out for that on our pages. I can't believe it's already that time again. So stay tuned, and we will be live in a couple of weeks with advice on that. So thanks, everyone.
Bye.